How about we start with today's broadcast? Well, the ground would have swallowed the street in seconds, as you can see. Luckily, no one lost their life. Everyone is okay. But well, people who were there, the workers in that area, were definitely at risk. This happened in China. Let's go to the broadcast. Let's talk about everything that's happening in the world. Get ready, start preparing your coffee, because we're going to be discussing the whole situation and, well, a lot of topics we have. Today we're going to start with this. A collapse in Shanghai during the subway construction caused an alert about urban safety in China. We're going to look at the explanation given by the officials, but also the scientific explanation about it. Different images have been showing how this happened with sinkholes, and from buildings people have been capturing how the ground opened up on that avenue. It seems that under that area they were building part of what would be the subway, at least that's how it looks in the images. In some of them you can see what looks like an underground river. It could be the same pipes, but it's definitely been surprising. The collapse happened at the intersection of Road and Liang Road L Road, where, according to reports, the transition from being flat to collapsing took only seconds. They had already seen cracks, and people knew that was an unsafe and unstable area. But luckily, people managed to get there. Some knew they were very close, but fortunately, they didn't leave. Within the collapse, a subway station is being built here, which immediately raised alerts about possible structural failures in the underground works. The images show the workers running away while the cloud of dust covers the asphalt, and the scenes show workers fleeing from the dust. Quickly, and well, look at the size of the people. The images show the workers as the dust covers the asphalt. Scenes. See if you can spot them. Here, this is a person. Over here is another person. There are others around. No, this one isn't a person, but this one is. The size is truly amazing, and I don't know if you can see me further up. Over there you can see several people. Here they are, where they managed to run, right? Look how many times. How many meters was it into that huge hole, this sinkhole or this collapse? The experts. Images show the workers running from the cloud of asphalt. Workers running, the cloud of dust covers the asphalt. Images show the workers running, the cloud of dust covers the asphalt. The buildings have to last about 20 or 25 years, and then they have to be demolished and rebuilt. So, that's also an issue. Images show workers running. The cloud of dust covers the asphalt. They show the workers running. The cloud of dust covers the asphalt and the The images show the workers, cloud, dust, asphalt, They simply remain as if on the verge of collapse. Another factor is calcification, a chemical process in which groundwater dissolves rocks such as limestone and dolomite. This creates voids that are like a kind of bubbles that are not visible. Images show workers the cloud of Images show workers cloud the asphalt in them. I mean, there are some areas here with more rain, and this speeds up the process, since there is also a lot of porosity, like it's porous, let's say, the issue, according to what the reality of the soil in the area reports. Images fleeing the cloud, asphalt. Images show workers fleeing the cloud of dust, asphalt, and the according to the reports. Well, in the coming days, an analysis will be done to determine how long it will take to. Images show the workers, the cloud of dust covering the asphalt. The scenes confirm that tens of thousands of cars pass through there every day. And at the very least, they're going to have to take another turn, a move toward other places. Another thing that also draws attention in all this is that images show the workers, the dust covers the asphalt. Images show the workers running away, the cloud of dust covers the asphalt, and the scenes show the workers running away. The cloud covers the asphalt, and that's what they're asking for. And not just in Shanghai, in all the mega cities, here in Mexico City, over there in Colombia, in Bogota, in Medellin, cities that have a lot of humidity, that have a lot of buildings. Obviously, this situation has to be constantly monitored. Well, before we continue, let me just say hello. How have you been, Nico John? How have you been, Sol Garcia, Francisco Arce, Luis? Get your coffee ready, those of you who are just arriving. We're going to dive right into the live stream with all the information from today, at least up to this point, about what's been happening. And well, this isn't going to be a short video, so I appreciate it. Obviously, we're constantly reviewing this situation, what's happening in Venezuela, in Iran, what's going on in Europe with NATO, and well, several other interesting issues about what's happening right now. Amidst all this collapse, amidst all this information, the scientific community is at least agreeing on one topic. Obviously, it is constantly reviewing this situation. Obviously, constantly reviewing this situation. Let's go there. The heir of the Shah of Iran is asking for an attack on Iran. He says the attack is now or never. He's asking for it to be a quick attack, but he says it's necessary. Let's get into the details, because right now it seems like a negotiation is about to happen. At least for the Shah and for others, not just for him, for others. Many experts say this is just a deception. It's not, it's just the Ayatollahs buying time. And over there you already have Turkey and even the United States apparently entering into a possible negotiation. The heir of the Shah, Reza Pahlavi, is asking the United States for a selective military strike. While thousands of people are reportedly still dying in the protests taking place in Iran, Washington is reinforcing its presence in the Middle East. While this kind of negotiation is taking place, at the same time there are some pretty significant military movements like in the state of Luis. Very good evening, Sol Garcia. How have you been? How are you? Within what the Shah is asking for? From this statement, which was made, by the way, at a security conference in Munich and reported by the German weekly Der Spiegel, he assures. Pahlavi, who describes the massive protests in January as a revolution, assured that there is no turning back in this opposition movement. According to Human Rights Watch, this organization has reported that so far they have already counted and verified with full names 7,002 victims who died under the regime of the sectors. The numbers are much higher, but let's say what can be quantified with full names, with confirmations from the families, all these kinds of things. Because in the end, well, there is talk of larger numbers, but the names are not yet available, so that's where the regime acknowledges it. Approximately 3,117, 3,120. That's where the last figure stood, although they know there are thousands more currently in the morgues. Pahlavi says the regime is fully empowered but lacks support from most of the population. That the leaders are hiding in bunkers. Meanwhile, the sectors in power are moving capital. They're moving capital both in cryptocurrencies and in cash to the Middle East. They're sending it to safe havens. Basically, they're sending a large part of Iran's money out of the country. The opposition leader stated that there are about 100,000 people within the Iranian system, including security members, and that within those groups some had communicated with him with the Crown Prince's team. So there is already a sector within the government, among the 100,000 people who make up the government, that is already talking, trying to reach some kind of agreement with Pahlavi himself trying. By January 13, President Donald Trump had already sent signals of support when he declared that help was on the way. Words that were taken by Pahlavi himself and by the Iranians as a sign that Donald Trump is indeed going to take action. This time, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is pressuring Washington to take a tougher stance against Tehran. Meanwhile, the Abraham Lincoln was sent, as we know, but it's still en route and will take 2 to 3 weeks. The judge is George Bush, another aircraft carrier. Thank you for watching. The topic isn't clear, but that's just the Donald Trump style. It's not like there's a lot of constant ambiguity, and let's not even mention the Ayatollahs, who also constantly use ambiguity as a strategy. Iranian officials confirmed indirect exchanges of messages with the United States. And at the same time, Turkey, Washington and Iran are showing, they say, a real willingness to negotiate international diplomacy. The Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan stated that both the United States and Iran are now willing to make concessions, to sacrifice something, they say, for a nuclear agreement, which could have a tremendous impact on geopolitical tensions. And it's bad news for those who protested and for the families who lost their children, etc. There wouldn't be a regime change, right? If that's truly what they're saying in Turkey, of course. Turkey considers that simply keeping the diplomatic channel open already represents a strategic advance. The Turkish minister emphasizes that the negotiations should not be extended to Iran's missile program, which is simply something Iran does not want. In other words, they say, okay, I'll give in on the nuclear issue. I don't have nuclear weapons, but I'm going to keep the ballistic missiles. Because what Israel is asking for is to reduce the ballistic missiles so that they only have 1,500, that they can't have more than 1,500 ballistic missiles. And that's the red line that Iran is now setting to have as many as they want and not limit them. In that sense, there was already a pact in 2015 that was later broken, that was with Obama, and then it was broken with Trump, and then with Biden, it was not resumed. Both Trump and Biden were putting restrictions on the Iranians, and then there was the June war, the 12-day war, right? So, this break seems to have a possible solution. According to what they say, the White House confirms that Washington insists on negotiating with Tehran while reinforcing its military presence. At the same time, that also sends a double message. This is already the 7th meeting between both leaders, between Netanyahu and Trump, between Israel and the United States. Speaking of this topic, we'll talk later about how this meeting went, what happened, what was said between them, at least what we know. Operation Midnight Hammer seems like it could turn into Operation Hammer 2.0, and in one of those cases, things could get intense, the situation. Another thing they haven't wanted to give in on is the issue of Hamas and Hezbollah. They're being asked not to support these proxy groups, these proxy wars. Terrorist groups that have been operating in Syria, in Lebanon, in Gaza. I mean, they've also been in Yemen with the Houthis. And they don't want to give in on that part either. So, honestly, it's complicated. Donald Trump also warns that if Iran doesn't accept the agreement, the consequences will be serious. Raising the tone to it's either my way or the highway, as they say. Basically, it's going in with swords drawn, basically. And in fact, it's very clear right now the largest foreign military force is in the Middle East, precisely pointing toward Iran, right? I mean, that's their focus right now, not the fact that Russia has left, or at least gotten ready. Family members and non-essential personnel have already left, but they've also prepared the nuclear plant operators who are Russian. In Iran, they've already prepared them to leave. Supposedly, evacuations have started, which Russia hasn't confirmed. But well, it's a topic that's kind of ambiguous. It doesn't seem like evacuations are starting there. Others say not yet. Well, who knows? Australia and several other countries with diplomats there have already withdrawn most of their staff, who had been present for some time. Well, even China has already moved people and asked Chinese citizens living there to leave Iran. No, I don't know if they'll listen to that or not, right? But yes, many countries have already been moving, including Iran's own partners. They must be seeing something, I guess, but anyway, let's move on to other matters. How have you been? Sol Garcia, San Vanilla says, very good day to everyone, community. Thank you very much. Greetings to Coyoacan, or Coyoacan. Wouldn't it be Ocoyoacac? Sorry, I lost track. Coyoacan, Ocoyoacac, State of Mexico. Hi Claudio, how have you been? Thanks a lot. How's it going? He says. Well, we'll read your message right now. Very well. Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Claudia. Claudia, sorry, I said Claudia. It's not Claudia. Greetings. Claudia Compine, big greetings. And right now we'll keep talking about the other important matters too. Greetings. Greetings. This is part of what scientists are seeing, that suddenly everyone wants to avoid it. But the scientists are making a plan at least, against what they call the Doomsday Glacier. The scientists are proposing to build a kind of underwater wall 80 kilometers long to prevent the collapse of a glacier, Greetings White, in Antarctica. Glaciers that are very dangerous because this could cause a sea level rise of about 65 centimeters, and at 65 centimeters, many might ask, why does 65 centimeters matter? It's just a little, right? Yes, just a little. There are countries, especially islands, that practically disappear because there are even cities that are almost at sea level. And with 65 centimeters, that's enough to flood entire sections. We're going to have a lot of Venice if we keep going like this. Scientists are proposing that something needs to be done about that glacier. Honestly, I don't know if it's avoidable. Sometimes you think, well, is it worth making such a huge expense for that? Well, I think it's difficult, but according to the reports, the Two White Glacier, which is, let me spell it out. Thwaites, in case anyone wants to look it up, is located in the Amundsen Sea in West Antarctica. It's not really to give you a sense of scale, because sometimes when you hear glacier, you imagine a chunk of ice that's just a few dozen meters across. That's what most people think. Sometimes I might say maybe a kilometer, 2 kilometers, right? If you really stretch it, maybe very, very big. But this glacier is called the Doomsday Glacier for a reason, right? And it's going to raise the entire ocean by 65 centimeters, which is a lot. And that's really significant. Forget about that. Forget about it. The people who are going to have to leave their islands or leave where they live, forget about that. The effect that hurricanes would have, and in general, on the behavior of the sea, would be tremendous. To give us an idea of the size of the glacier in comparison, this glacier is approximately the size of the entire United Kingdom. Or, to go more towards America, let's say on this side, the whole size of Florida, don't you remember? Just imagine all of Florida, or the entire United Kingdom. It's a chunk of ice, and suddenly it goes into the water. It's not in the water, it enters the water. And obviously it has an effect. And they claim that this glacier has or holds ice on land. Keep in mind, it's not in the sea. Scarcity or held in the sea. On land, if it melts, the sea level doesn't rise. I mean, if suddenly ice that's in the sea melts, nothing happens. Foreigners, that the weight of that ice is already accounted for in the sea. It's the same for free. The variation is minimal. But when that ice is on land and it melts and the water falls, that's when the sea level rises. So suddenly it also depends on how and where the glacier is. In this case, according to reports, it would rise about 2.1 feet or 65 centimeters if it collapses completely. Currently, it contributes about 4% of this whole situation that's happening in the ocean. It accounts for 4% of these collapses and sea level rise. The main threat doesn't come from the sea level rising, but from the fact that the water currents change. That's possibly the harshest effect, beyond the fact that, well, land will be lost and some people will have to evacuate. All of that won't be drastic. It won't happen overnight like a tornado or a hurricane. Instead, this is a process that would take weeks or months. So, well, it's something you can more or less manage. It's tough because if someone has lived in their house all their life, they'll have to leave. But the most drastic thing is what would happen to currents like the Atlantic Meridional Overturning Circulation currents that would be affected or might even disappear. The Atlantic Meridional Overturning Circulation current is the one that carries warm water from the Gulf of Mexico, all of the Atlantic, the Gulf of Mexico, and goes up toward the North Atlantic. And that warm water keeps the entire North Atlantic Ocean from freezing. Without that current, the North Atlantic freezes and becomes a giant piece of ice. And well, New York, for example, would just have ice on the coast. There wouldn't be a coast, there would be ice. It wouldn't be there. That's what they think could happen. I mean, you make this whole area useless. You lose the possibility of fishing, transportation. I mean, there would be a tremendous effect. Isn't that the main threat? In light of all this, the international group of scientists is proposing to build a barrier called the Sobe Curtain, which is like a kind of wall that would be anchored to the seabed. Approximately 150 meters high and 80 kilometers long, its function would be to block the flow of warm water that is accelerating the melting, or they don't intend to stop the glacier because that's impossible. I mean, stopping the glacier would be... Well, that's something we don't have the human capacity for. It's like stopping an entire country. Basically, this explains it, I think, better than what this does. It's a section of the Nature journal publication that outlines their goals. What do they want to achieve? This glacier, water comes in through this part, let's say, between the land and the ice. Warm water gets in and it's melting it, accelerating the melting of this glacier more and more. What they're proposing is that this whole section of wall will stop the warm waters, right? So, by stopping the warm waters, in theory, you prevent this from collapsing. At least for a while, you prevent this from collapsing, right? Its function is to block the flow of warm water that's accelerating the glacial melting. The cost would be, just look at the cost, $80 billion. But its promoters claim that the damage it would cause if this isn't done would be trillions of dollars worldwide. In other words, either we spend $80 billion on this, or we'd have to spend trillions of dollars worldwide. If the other thing happens, right? Preliminary models suggest that melting could be reduced by up to 10 times in some areas, although, well, this would still need to be further analyzed. The truth is, I find it hard to believe that countries would do it. They don't like to invest in these kinds of things, and even less so to do it together, right? What's in it for me? No, they don't see it. Researchers at Mossad University describe the idea as a possible distraction from real solutions. And this is where the issue begins. No, not all scientists agree, he says. Drastically reducing pollution would have a better effect, says this scientist from Monash University. No. I mean, they say, what's the point of putting up this barrier if we keep generating the same pollutants and the same problems, right? What would happen if this happens, if White's or the so-called Doomsday Glacier, he says? Coastal cities would be under permanent threat. Millions of people would have to be displaced. Port infrastructures and economies would suffer massive damage. The domino effect on the Antarctic ice sheet could multiply the impact. And if that piece falls, it could melt even more. I mean, have an even worse effect. Not investing billions in radical climate engineering or focusing all efforts on stopping warming, could that be the solution? The scientists are asking the question here, but the truth is, I don't think they have an answer to that yet. Another issue that also draws attention, look on a different note, but still related to this topic, is what's happening in Cuba. It catches my attention that besides the energy crisis, the tourism crisis, and all kinds of crises, the informal market is reaching a historic record in the sale of dollars. And here, I'm not sure if our friends from Cuba are here, but it would be interesting if they could comment. According to the reports, the peso is down to about 500 per dollar. This obviously is triggering an alert on the island. According to the reports, the average salary on the island is around 7,000 Cuban pesos, which is equivalent to about $14 at the informal exchange rate. A simple box of eggs costs about 3,000 pesos, just imagine. That's almost half of the monthly salary. The real exchange rate is negotiated in private groups and personal networks, much higher than the official rate. The state maintains multiple official rates, from 24 Cuban peso per dollar up to 425 Cuban peso. I mean, that's the most recent rate. And well, what this shows is that there's a collapse in the price of the peso. The President of the United States, Donald Trump, announced that oil will not be sent, that it's happening right now. Russia is talking with the United States to see if they can reach an agreement and send them oil through Russia. In Mexico, they've also been taking diplomatic actions to see if they can send oil without facing tariff consequences. But for now, there is no report confirming that this is going to happen. So, in the meantime, there's no gasoline, which means there's no electricity, and as a result, many areas don't have water. And since food can't be put in the refrigerator, right? I mean, you just consume what you have, what you've got. And that's it really, because it's complicated. There won't be areas that I suppose still have electricity because here they're still connected, right? But it's really tough. Some estimate 1 more week, maybe 2 more weeks of electricity. If this isn't solved because of that, then the crisis will reach its peak, right? Look at what this is. This movement is getting more and more intense. We're talking about Kim Jong-un preparing his 4th dynasty right now. I mean, the Kim Jong-un family is preparing the 4th dynasty. With a 13-year-old girl, he's very young. I mean, yes, he has health issues. He smokes a lot. He's always had problems with his weight, with his knee, with smoking, with whatever you want. I don't know if he has any other serious problems, but I would assume so. I would assume so because he's very young, and that's it. Now he's really preparing his 13-year-old daughter as much as possible, who doesn't even look 13 anymore. She already looks like a grown woman, right? This draws attention, huh? Let's get into the details of what's happening, but it's raising alarms because of what might be going on internally. South Korea has been warning that there is a report from South Korea's National Intelligence Agency claiming that Kim Jong-un is consolidating his daughter as his successor. Power in North Korea. In a very intense way, as if something is about to happen. According to parliamentarian Ryu Song-kyung, the assessment has changed. It used to be said that Kim Ju-ae was in training. Now she is in the phase of being internally designated as the heir. This would imply the formal beginning of the 4th dynastic generation of the regime. Kim Il-sung, Kim Jong-il, Kim Jong-un, who is the current leader. And now she would be next, right? Kim Ju-ae? The teenager has drastically increased her public presence. She no longer appears as a little girl, but literally as a lady. You can see her there, right? And it's this one. She went from looking like an innocent little girl to having the look of the Jungs of the Kim Jong-un. The state media are already starting to describe her as the beloved daughter, or they also call her the Great Guide. Terms that have historically been used for the supreme leaders, and they're already using them right now. The recent appearance at the Encom Sound Palace, the mausoleum of the historical leaders, was interpreted as a symbolic gesture of dynastic legitimacy. The National Intelligence Service believes that UAE is already participating in high-level decisions and is being treated as the second most important figure in the country. South Korean analysts suggest that she could be appointed as the first secretary of the Central Committee of the Workers' Party, the second most powerful position in the regime. Everything will be decided at the next Congress of the Workers' Party. At that moment, they are supposed to announce what the proposals are about, the military approach they'll take. That's basically the direction, right? What is the military approach or path, so to speak? In the coming months and in the coming years. Every so often, the person I mentioned does that, not me. How has Roblox been? Roblox? Greetings, very good, Veronica. How are you? To the whole community that's joining, thank you very much. Leave comments about where you're watching us from. I know sometimes new people arrive here, new community. Tell us where you're watching from, where you're listening to us from. Veronica de la Cruz, how have you been? If this is confirmed in some way, they're saying first that the dynasty continues, obviously, but second that maybe something is happening with Kim Jong-un. No, why? Because really, in theory, he should have a lot of life left, right? The move would be seeking to send an internal message of stability after there have been internal changes involving very high-level people who have been left out of that government. The prominence of Kim Jong-un's daughter appears at military events. which suggests that they are already considering having her learn North Korea's military secrets. No, and well, that's it. That's all. I mean, it's a very curious profile, not very remarkable. That they're considering that possibility even from now. Let's move on to other interesting matters as well. Notice that this image is being shown. This was last night. The leader of Venezuela, Maria Ropeza, who just got out, they released her from jail, not from being a political prisoner. She arrived in her state, Portuguesa, in a caravan with cries of freedom. Well, obviously it's good to see political prisoners being released, raising their voices and celebrating. There's still a long way to go because of what's happening in Venezuela, but this image is striking, obviously, an image that also draws attention. It's something that happened over there in Florida where they show, well, a group of people, technicians and animal specialists. And how many people had to go to a place to get this manatee out? Look at the size of the manatee. You know how huge manatees are, right? This 410-pound manatee was rescued with a crane after getting trapped in a storm drain in Florida. Well, it's great news that they were able to save it, because the manatee wouldn't have made it otherwise, huh? If they hadn't rescued it, it wouldn't have made it. How would it get out of there? I mean, it's really complicated, honestly. Well, there you have it, the huge manatee. Another set of surprising images, this time from Florida. Now, let's turn to events in Ukraine. Listen to this. Shit, damn it. Let's go, shit. Well, what happened there? Let's see, I'm sure they'll report it. These are from the Russian side. What you heard there were Ukrainian drones attacking the Progress plant in Morusnik, in the Tambov region, in Russia, where they're also carrying out attacks on power plant areas in that part of the world. Now, another thing that draws attention is this that's coming up right now, according to reports from the Ukrainian hacker group called 256 Cyber Assault Division. They reported that they have created a network of fake channels and bots that offer services to Russian military personnel to activate Starlink terminals. In other words, according to the data, in just 1 week they collected 2,420 requests with details of terminals and geolocators. All the information received was forwarded for further processing and the adoption of relevant measures. In other words, there's the entire list of positions where the Russian soldiers who are using Starlink would be. That's a type of hacking, obviously very serious in the context or during times of war conflict. Speaking of Russia, by the way, also take a look at this place. It's a form of protesting, of saying it's a people. It's that the cohort blocks everything, Telegram blocks YouTube, so they started blocking all these networks, and those aren't enough for control. So the Russians, those are Russians, they go and put chains on the staff there to lock them up as a protest against this situation, because the Russian government is becoming more and more radical in how they operate. Like a Kim Jong-un type, a North Korea type to control all the information, and that's it. Let's move on to another topic. It is being reported right now that in Kyiv, Dnipro, and Odessa, there are currently Russian drone and missile attacks against Ukraine. The attack aimed at energy infrastructure is now drawing attention, as today it focused on residential buildings. So far, no casualties have been reported. The residents of the capital are inside shelters, most of them on mats or blankets and sleeping bags to stay safe. Today, February 12th. Well, that's how things are in that part of the world. Let's move on to other matters, other important reports as well. Thank you, Jenry. How have you been? Big greetings, Eliseo, Enselma Pacheco, how have you been? Greetings to Guanajuato. Great, Carlos, how have you been? Greetings to Israel. To the whole community watching us, let us know where you're watching from. Thank you so much for telling us, Carlos, all the way from Argentina as well. Amanda, by the way, we're in Monterrey. Monterrey in Mexico, in the northeast of the country. Let's move on to another important matter. Look, there's something strange that scientists have detected in space. We'll discuss that soon, but first I want to share what Steven Spielberg says. This great director, a very interesting film director because he has been a film director who deeply believes in the unidentified flying object phenomenon. He has researched it, and not only that, he investigates the mysteries of humanity in a serious way, and he does it because he can, because he likes it. He is a person who, unlike many other directors who talk about horror and science fiction, but they don't believe in any of that. They don't believe in these kinds of things. They just do it simply because they like to entertain whoever they want. The case of Spielberg is different in that sense. And he has broken the silence about what he has lived through and what he has seen regarding the things he experienced and what he investigated. Because he has interviewed military personnel, because he has interviewed people who have had very strange experiences with those topics. And he states that, at least from what he has been able to observe, the existence of life outside of Earth is not only a possibility, but it is guaranteed that this is the case. In a recent one, today he's also providing you with a movie that he's working on, right? We have to remember that he partially produced this Disclosure Day project, the documentary. Do you remember? And now he also brings another project on these topics, right? He says he has been fascinated by things that can't be explained, remembering that he has always been focused on the unknown, and he assures that it's a topic that fascinates him. And he suggests that, based on the information he has been able to observe, and with those he has been able to talk to or interview, they assure that at least he perceives that there is indeed an intelligence or intelligences that would be trying either to contact us or even here within the Earth. He assures that, well, it's a topic that needs to be explored, that needs to be investigated, and that, well, there are the images, the testimonies of hundreds or maybe thousands of military personnel who have had strange experiences. He says that while science fiction often exaggerates things like attacks, it's ultimately just entertainment, right? But he says aside from that, he does believe that there is some kind of something, right? Something strange there, isn't it? Something that, well, he says is an intelligence or intelligences that have been making contact for a long time. Another thing that also catches my attention is what is currently being investigated by a scientific group. They claim that there is, well, a contact. A kind of recording that was reported by a Colombian pilot. We'll see it in a moment, and there's also an investigation by astronomers, which really catches my attention, because in the end, they're trying to discover how space works. The Hubble Space Telescope may have captured something that for scientists is something strange. A play of light around a dying star 1,000 light years away has revealed unprecedented details about the final fate of the Sun, according to what the images report. No, what they are. These images are. They show more or less what they have seen as a kind of luminous vibration that has caught the attention of those scientists, they say. Within these, in this analysis that has been done, the symmetrical patterns suggest a possible gravitational interaction. Another star hidden under the dust that cannot be seen. Unlike a violent explosion, here we see a kind of orderly and progressive process of mass ejection. The dust released by dying stars was key to forming planetary systems, including ours, about 4.5 billion years ago. What you see there would be like a kind of egg nebula. That's what they've called it. It's not just a star dying, it's cosmic recycling in action, according to what they've reported. No, another thing, which is what I'm telling you about. This object was reportedly captured by a Colombian pilot. Here I'm just focusing on the image part and nothing else. I'll comment quickly. How was it? This case, which is interesting, involves a pilot from Antioquia who filmed in high resolution an object with no visible wings or engines. Scientists are studying them, they're studying them, right? This one? Aeronautical experts are analyzing it to determine what it is. The video was recorded by a pilot from Colombia at 12,500 feet of altitude. And this, well, obviously is drawing attention because it's not the first, and I honestly don't think it will be the last. No. I mean, these are objects that keep appearing, and, well, I don't know if I should say that we're already getting used to seeing them, but they're showing up more often. Do you agree? So are there more pilots who are daring to publish these kinds of things? Let's go. Let's get to some of the most interesting points about this topic, right? And that's it. Let me see if the chat is already here. Well, I still can't see it yet. There it is. Ah, sorry, I brought it. There it is. Great. There it is. Rublo, greetings. Thank you all very much. Rublos, very good. Francisco Arce, how have you been? Very good, you say? Some time ago in Argentina, a double rainbow was seen. I was the only person who... How cool, sister. How cool. I've also had the chance to see a double rainbow once. Hello? The object was captured moving at approximately, just imagine, around 250 kilometers per hour. Yes, according to the reports, no engines are observed. Nothing was heard. There are no propulsion systems. Yes. The image captures it. Well, it's quite interesting. There are already several researchers on the subject who are also trying to analyze if this is some kind of drone or something else. No, to determine if it is any known technology, at least. And well, we'll see what conclusions come out, right? But these objects, these things, have been appearing for decades. At least recorded, because we could even talk about centuries. We can already see what's in history, right? There are some interesting stories there, aren't there? This happened in 2022, by the way, at 12,500 feet of altitude. Has the topic been kind of renewing itself? Because, well, that's what the Pentagon says. What the Department of Homeland Security says is that these WAFs, these objects, well, they're there. They don't call them anomalies. No, they don't often call them objects. They prefer to say aerial anomalies. And I don't know, so many things, right? And now the term WAF is used instead of omnibus, or unidentified flying object. They've preferred to use the term WAF. I think it's also to downplay the possibility that this could be something non-human, right? I mean, the possibility is there, isn't it? But this topic doesn't leave any doubt. Hey, I also changed the topic. Check this out. It's really amazing how nature can be sometimes. Seriously, check it out. What we're seeing here is the tail of a caterpillar. Yes, it's the tail of a caterpillar, but look at it. It looks like a snake. It's the tail. But obviously, who would go for it? I mean, a bird. Because birds eat caterpillars, but if a bird sees that, it would say no thanks, right? Let's go somewhere else, because it looks like a snake, right? And snakes, well, they eat birds. There are snakes that eat them. So it's really interesting, isn't it? Like the level of adaptation in nature is amazing. I mean, how does a caterpillar's intelligence evolve to the point where it practically looks like a viper, like a snake, right? Well, anyway. This was shared by ScienceGuard on Twitter. It's really amazing. And well, I don't recognize what kind of thing this is, but if someone can tell me. We've already seen several similar adaptations with other caterpillars. I don't know this one, but I find this topic very, very interesting. Now, another thing that caught my attention is that I don't know how real it was, but I found the story very interesting. Let's see if someone can confirm this for me, because this happened in 2012. Maybe someone remembers this. A couple, which is this couple right here, a British couple. They thought it would be funny to send an invitation to Queen Elizabeth, right? So they said, put Queen Elizabeth as a guest and send her the invitation. No, and they did it just for fun, that's all. And guess what? Queen Elizabeth appeared, and I took a risk since they look far apart in the photo. No, it wasn't just the Queen, but also Prince Philip, her husband. No, when they say Prince Philip, no, that's the right one, and he's her husband, not this one. They went to the wedding. I don't know if this is, let's see, is there anyone who knows about the British royalty? I don't know if this happened. It would seem strange to me. Did Queen Elizabeth have a face? I don't know, maybe the kingdom's marketing people or something did it. I remember she started appearing in music videos. She started showing up in comedy movies, like making a cameo, right? She would show up in the background, you know. She started doing really strange things. I don't know if you remember, but she had a few years where she was kind of crazy. No, because she always had not the same seriousness, but she would show up in unusual places, right? It's like they wanted to send a different message from the royal family because they were coming from a time when the internet started. What was most spread in the topic of conspiracy theories and all these things was precisely stuff about the royal family, specifically the Queen. They weren't talking about her all the time, so that kind of diminished the image she had at that moment, right? And well, I don't know, let's see if you can confirm this for me, right? This topic. In the meantime, he says, let's move on to other matters, let's move on to other important topics as well, important ones. Look, there was a 6.2 magnitude earthquake, okay? I thought it was 6.1 or 6.2. This happened in Chile, and it's not that deep, okay? I mean, because sometimes in Chile there are earthquakes that are, well, 300 kilometers underground, but this one isn't that far, right? But this time it's 39 kilometers underground. So in the end, you know, right? Chile is a highly seismic country. It's an earthquake that happened in the southeast of Fray Jorge Park. Yes, so let's get into the details, right? Because in any case, the Pacific, specifically Chile, Ecuador, Mexico, Peru, right? I mean, these are countries that have a lot of earthquakes, and I think Chile is probably the one with the most earthquakes and the most intense ones, right? Also, there's been preparation for decades about what to do in case of earthquakes and tsunamis. We won't go into detail, right? A strong earthquake was reportedly felt in the Coquimbo region this morning. Authorities have already ruled out the risk of a tsunami. It's been ruled out, but they're still monitoring the situation, according to the report. According to what is known, today, Thursday, February 12, this earthquake was reported in the north of Chile, causing concern in several regions and being felt in provinces, even in Argentina, near the mountains. The seismic movement occurred at around 10:34 a.m. local time. According to the preliminary report from the National Seismological Center, the epicenter is located 15 kilometers southwest of Frey Forest National Park in the north of Chile. The depth was estimated at 33 kilometers, which classifies it as an intermediate depth earthquake, noticeable in wide areas. The phenomenon was felt between the Chilean regions of Atacama and Ñuble. According to the first reports from citizens, it was indeed felt strongly in some places. The National Disaster Prevention and Response Service reported that the characteristics of the earthquake do not meet the conditions necessary to generate a tsunami. Well, that's obviously good that it doesn't generate a tsunami, so that's good. So far, at least, no structural damage or casualties have been reported. No, that's all the information I have right now. It was felt on the Argentine side, it was felt in Mendoza, in San Juan, in La Rioja, in San Luis, provinces close to the Andes mountain range. That's where it would have been felt, according to the report, right? Based on current information, at least. How are you, Jose Zarate? Welcome to everyone joining the community. Thanks for being here. Rocha Eliseo, how are you? The country has one of the most active seismic records in the world, including that earthquake in 1960. The earthquake, the one with a 9.5 magnitude, impressive, right? In Valdivia? And of course, it is, instrumentally speaking, the most powerful earthquake ever recorded in history so far. Instrumentally speaking, it's really something tremendous, right? Also, recent events stand out, like the 8.8 earthquake in 2010 in the Mall region, the 8.3 in 2015 in Coquimbo, both of which generated tsunamis. By the way, on this occasion, well, no. It records thousands of earthquakes every year, right? And on this occasion, well, an earthquake truly intense, right? He says many of the things you see in the sky are beams of light, crossing in the sky and with kilometers of distance between them. They look three-dimensional, he says. He says that, for it to look three-dimensional, the only way is for you to see the beam of light, and there would have to be several beams of light at the same time. If not, there's no way it could look three-dimensional. The only way is for it to have several beams at the same time to generate or look like a projection. But you have to see the beam of light. Without the beam of light, there's no way, like in the movies, no. If there is, especially in cloudy environments, which is where it could be projected, there would have to be a beam of light, right? This is the only way. If you see an object, the object is there, right? If you see the beam, it's not an object, it's just light. With a projection, no, but there's no way it can be projected onto a cloud without a beam of light. No, there isn't. There's no way for that. Simply because the light bounces off all the droplets before it gets to where it's supposed to bounce. In the end, right? So here's a big shout out, he says. Well, speaking of this, just to wrap up this topic, authorities are reiterating that we just need to follow the protocols, right? Call your relatives to see if they're okay, right? And that's it, right? Luckily this issue didn't get any worse. Another issue that also draws attention and is pretty serious is the massive blackout that happened in France. That's happening in France. I'm sure it's being reported. France has had, a chaotic situation today. Since 900,000 people, 900,000 households, not people. That's actually several million people. 900,000 homes and businesses were left without power. This happened after Storm Niels, according to reports. Let's see how this situation is, but let's also look at the map to see if we can still see it. Yes, this mega storm is still quite visible. Well, this storm. The French are dealing with it right now. With this situation, right? Where we're going to take a closer look. How is it impacting? There it is. That's this whole area. Let's take a look. The storm is passing through there. Well, according to the reports, the gusts have reached up to 160 kilometers per hour. Red alert in 5 departments of France and massive power outages in the southern part, while Spain is also activating emergencies. According to the reports, Storm Niels has unleashed a critical situation in the south of France, already leaving 1 person dead. 900,000 households without electricity and multiple interruptions to transportation and basic services. A truck driver died after a tree branch fell near Dax in the southwest of France amid gusts that exceeded 160 kilometers per hour. Wow, that's really strong. 160 would be category 1, right? Yes, that's intense, isn't it? Greetings, Rodrigo. All the way to Chile. How have you been, Eliseo? All the way to Spain, he says. Spain is all wet. It looks like Galicia. It's pouring rain, he says. Eliseo, greetings. Eliseo, look at that. Just greetings. That's great. That's where you live. Look at that. So we're already dealing with a tremendous storm, right? Now, the regions most affected by the blackouts are New Aquitaine with 498,000 homes without power and Occitania with 365,000 affected homes. The electric operator Enedis has been activating its Rapid Intervention Force, called Rapid Electric Intervention Force, which stands for Rapid Electric Intervention Force, mobilizing 360 employees to respond to the emergency. In France, 1,000 technicians will also be ready to operate during the night, along with another 400 workers from companies and suppliers. Ready to act when the weather allows, according to Meteo France, which is their meteorological system, the storm is of exceptional intensity, which led to a red alert being declared in the 5 departments. In France, 200 firefighter interventions were recorded in just a few hours, mainly due to fallen trees and power lines on the ground. Rail traffic suffered cancellations and delays, while several roads were blocked by fallen trees. The impact was not limited to France. On the Spanish island of Mallorca, for example, hurricane-force winds of 150 kilometers per hour were also reported in Catalonia. This obviously includes Barça. A red alert was declared, schools were closed, and 1 person was seriously injured when a tree fell. Also there in Catalonia, several railway connections and roads were temporarily blocked due to the effects of the storm. Well then, huge greetings Adrian, he says. Look at Barcelona. Today, 108 kilometers the wind, he says. Well, just imagine. Incredible. Adrian, I send you a big greeting and thank you for commenting on this. Well, it's intense. The authorities warn of ongoing risk due to rising rivers, possible avalanches, and more extreme gusts in the coming hours. Let's see. Let's check how the wind gusts are right now. Let's take a quick look. Yeah, it's really intense. This is current. This is just what's happening right now. On the southern coast of France, the winds are around 95, 100 something kilometers per hour. That's right now in southern France. If we go to the northern part of Spain, the most intense is 87. At least that's what it shows me here, but it's already on its way out. We didn't get to see the most intense part live, right? But if we go a little further back, maybe we could see a little better. That's it. It goes up to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It goes up to about 9 in the morning. That's what I can see here for the time. Spain, right? Approximately. What would this be? Well, it's hitting hard in this area, basically in Catalonia, not in the south of France. 5 departments affected. And what's coming well also for Italy? Apparently not, because it's going over there. Look at the winds right now for being on the coast. I think it's complicated, not over there, not for the Mediterranean. And all this area, the winds continue. The winds keep affecting North Africa, Southern Europe, for Greece, for all this area. Also Italy. Greece will be affected, even Turkey. Not at the moment. Well, it's stormy and tense there. The storm has hit. Over there. They also call it the same Niels Adrian to the community where Eliseo is, to the community over there. In Spain, they also call it a storm. Liz says, not really today, it was probably worse yesterday, right? Yeah, well, she says yesterday it reached 120 here. She says it went over 120, imagine that. Well, here it says 150 for Spain, 160 for France, according to the report. That's what I have. Well, that's how things are. Just quickly, I just wanted to tell you. Right now in Russia, they're announcing that they're looking into the possibility of sending gasoline or oil to this. Cuba, no, he says. The Kremlin confirms that it is looking to send oil to Cuba as humanitarian aid, while avoiding a direct escalation with the United States during the ongoing energy crisis. The Kremlin spokesman, Dmitry Peskov, stated that Russia does not want an escalation with the United States, but they do say they are going to send oil. Peskov recalled that currently, trade between the two powers, the United States and Russia, is practically non-existent. But they say they are not seeking an escalation. They simply say they are going to send this aid supposedly to Cuba. I don't know, they say they've had problems with oil and shortages, even the Russians themselves, so it's strange that they're going to send it to Cuba. Partly, but, well, that's what the Ministry of Economy says. And what the Kremlin spokesperson says is also good. It's part of what's going on as well. Another thing that stands out is that today Delcy Rodriguez, over there in Venezuela, who they call president, reports in charge. No, well, she gave an interview to an American media outlet called Media Press with National Broadcasting Company News. And she claimed that the United States had invited her, to visit that country. In the interview, it's basically been a month tomorrow, right? Tomorrow marks 1 month since that moment, since that takeover by Maduro, not Nicolas Maduro. They took him away on January 3rd, and tomorrow marks a month, which is why this interview is happening. Maduro is facing charges of drug trafficking, arms trafficking, and so on, right? Along with his wife, Celia Flores. Didn't you all remember that in New York? Well, so he gave the interview with Delcy on this outlet, and surely we'll see reactions from the United States about this topic. Now, will he go to the United States? It would be very strange, wouldn't it, if Delcy were at the White House and at the same time Maduro was in jail? It's an interesting topic. Curious. Well, let's move on to other important matters. What's going on? Check this out. This report, right? They claim that what I'm about to tell you could change the global economy. Thanks. Look, here's something very interesting. What problem are Trump and the United States facing right now? What's going on? Just to take a quick look and get an idea of the problem they're in right now. Do you see this? This is the Nasdaq. These are the tech companies. Do you see the drop? Yes, besides this, let's look at the drop of the dollar, right? Let's zoom in and extend this a bit more. There it is. This is the drop of the dollar. That's in relation to the Mexican peso. And if we go further back, the drop goes way back. You can see where the dollar was. It was worth up to 25 pesos. And right now it's worth 17 pesos. Yeah, with the euro, it's about the same. We're not going to get too close here either. I mean, it's worth a little more or about the same, just like the euro. Right now, $1 is 83 euro cents. Well, the dollar is weak, and that's clear. China and Russia say they have this Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa thing, and that they're going to be stronger than the dollar. Well, it turns out that Russia is now considering going back to the dollar. Russia is considering going back to the dollar, and this obviously sets off alarms for Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. To begin with, not everyone who was supposed to come actually came. And well, with all that talk about the dollar going out and all that, now it turns out that Russia wants dollars and wants to operate in dollars. Russia and the United States are currently planning and making this agreement. Russia is currently considering returning to the dollar as part of a broad economic partnership with Donald Trump. This is reported by Bloomberg. The United States and Russia are working together on a fuel material that is oil. Specifically, they will also make joint investments in natural gas, as well as offshore oil partnerships and critical raw materials. This would generate tremendous profits for oil companies and energy firms in the United States, and this would mark Russia's return to the world economic system. If this agreement goes through, it would be included in the deal. Peace for Ukraine? No, so why? On one hand, it would boost Russia's economy, it would boost the United States economy, and at first, well, would it leave Ukraine in peace? So there would be like three things that would be very interesting, and here, well, the question would be, what will Europe's bet be, right? I mean, what will it be? In case Bloomberg is right and this is agreed upon, well, what will Europe's position be on this? I suppose from what I'm seeing, Europe is going to look at China, it's going to look at India, it's going to look at other places, and besides at the United States, right? But it's going to have to start doing business with other countries, right? It'll have to open its markets a bit more as well. It's very interesting. I mean, I don't know if it's going to happen. Honestly, I see it as difficult. All of this seems very, very strange. But it would be something unheard of and unprecedented in economic terms. And would you say, where does Brazil fit in? It's where Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa is. Although, well, Brazil. They've insisted that they're not against the dollar. No, they've said time and again that they're not against the dollar, but they want to have other options too, right? India, which has been a tough nut to crack because it's been difficult to do business with India. Well, it's already opening up to the United States also to lower tariffs because that's the thing. Modi and Trump are quite similar in how they handle the issue of tariffs. India keeps putting 100% tariffs on a lot of things. On cars, for example. From Europe, they have a 100% tariff. I mean, the same strategy that Trump uses, Modi has been using for a long time now. For years. So it seems like Modi is going to be a bit more flexible on that issue. And at the same time, what he's asking for is more factories. He wants to manufacture more things himself, right? By the way, there's a report here right now. I don't know if this is coming out nationwide right now, but there's a movement of BYD and the other Chinese car company too. Raid Motors, I don't know, GMW, well, I don't know what it's called, but this company is currently competing to buy a car plant in Mexico. I don't know which one. I didn't get to read the report. I'll have it for you tonight instead. But they're looking to produce cars here, which is obviously something that's necessary, right? If they're going to sell so many cars here, shouldn't they also produce them here to create jobs locally? But anyway, that's another topic we'll talk about later. Maybe tonight. By the way, Let's take a look at some of today's interesting images as well. This comment made by the Prime Minister of Denmark seems interesting to me. Let's listen. According to what the Prime Minister says, Denmark is not involved. Matt Fickerson says we should never have become dependent on Russian oil and gas. But he also says it's a mistake that we've become dependent on China, he says. We need to have balance in economies and technologies. And well, yes, right? I mean, it's not about closing off completely, but it's also not about opening up 100%, right? Obviously, it's just something to think about. There, it's also interesting to see that surprising move by Chris Wright, the Secretary of Energy of the United States, visiting the oil wells over there in Petro. Is it Petróleos de Venezuela, Sociedad Anónima, right? Petróleos de Venezuela, Sociedad Anónima. He was accompanied by Elsie Rodriguez, and they went to the Orinoco Oil Company. There she is, that's good. The ambassador is also there. Well, she's not an ambassador, she's the chargé d'affaires, but she's kind of like a United States ambassador. She is the one who greeted. Chris Wright is also there, and of course Elsie Rodriguez herself is there as well. It's also an interesting image, and part of the story of how things are unfolding. How has Jack Draper been? Hello San Vanilla, how are you? How have you been? Greetings, 67. Does what Elsie says confirm that they handed Maduro over? Well, yes, exactly. No, exactly. There it is. Another image, let's put it this way, is this one. Look, 2 United States ships reportedly collided. They weren't destroyed or anything. According to reports, 2 United States Navy ships collided in the Caribbean. This happened during a refueling operation at sea. It's the destroyer United States ship Truxtun and the logistics ship United States Naval Ship Supply. 2 crew members were injured, but both ships are still operational and there was no serious damage. But they say they're going to investigate the incident to see what happened, where the mistake was. No.
No. No, 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 no. No, no, no. No.
This is historic for what's happening with immigration and customs enforcement over there in Minneapolis. Immigration and customs enforcement operations have ended there. Is this the end of immigration and customs enforcement in Minneapolis? What people were asking for, what they were protesting, what also led to several people losing their lives. Well, right now there's an important situation. He is what they call the czar, the migration czar, right? No, whatever you want to call him. Well, there you have Tom Holland saying that it's the end of the... And let's get into the details of what is known about this matter, because it's really serious. No. It's not the actor, right? It's not the actor from Spider-Man, it's Tom Holman. No. In Minnesota, within Minneapolis, there weren't supposed to be any agents left, or there would only be agents in an office. Holman reportedly stated that there will be an end to the operation and a significant reduction starting this week. The goal is for him to be completely out of this operation in Minneapolis. He explains that the proposal was presented to President Trump and received direct approval, which makes the decision a political order endorsed by the White House. The operation would have generated strong tensions in local communities, especially in Minneapolis, where raids and an intensive presence of federal agents were reported. The deployment was part of Trump's plan to reach 1 million deportations, one of the most ambitious promises of his immigration agenda. By the way, unfortunately, the people who were injured, those who died, they won't be able to recover. there should be an investigation and action taken. And to take legal action against these people, right? I mean, to carry out the investigation and the judicial process. I don't think they're going to do it, at least for now, although the state government could do it. Supposedly they're investigating it, and that's why I imagine they also want to step down, right? Because they're afraid it's going to start. To detain the AIS agents, we have to remember that the National Guard is also there, in theory, to protect the population from the AIS. So, this was already looking more like a complicated situation of government facing government, right? I mean, this would be really, really, really strange, and that's why this matter is so interesting, right? This confirmation was highly anticipated. At the peak, up to 3,000 agents were reportedly deployed in Minneapolis and nearby cities. Supposedly. And already... Martin, what happened with those agents? Are they still operating under positive standards? Lacroso Sanchez. They talk about leaving but never do. Also, it mentions a small group. Are they still going to operate? I mean, it's kind of weird, but... Well, they talk about a conclusion to the operation, so hopefully that's what it means. By the way, that's settled now, so there's just one topic left, and it's getting more and more tense because of the Shanghai port. Because the United States is issuing a warning to Peru, and it's because of the issue with China inside this port. By the way, are you firmly opposed to these statements from the United States? And the thing is, the spokesperson for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Shan, reportedly stated today at a press conference in China that he opposes the statements made by the United States President after the Latin America office of the United States State Department warned that Peru could be left unable to supervise the port under predatory Chinese owners. And he points out that cheap Chinese money costs sovereignty. So basically saying that it's Chinese, a Chinese port, but it's going to cause you a problem, right? That's also important, right? And well, that's how things are. Now it's this. Is China carrying out these operations at the port? Well, obviously they have their own interests, right? And what the United States, well, it's a warning because they're going to want to control not only the ports, but also things related to the government. Business matters, things like what goes through and what doesn't, that kind of stuff. You're going to lose sovereignty, supposedly. So that's also part of the comment that he's making about this topic. And China reacts that way too. By the way, for those who defend Trump, like here, MAGA says, well, fewer and fewer people are supporting Trump. Precisely because of this, here's the list. This is just about the 3 who are part of Donald Trump's administration who have been mentioned in the Epstein documents, and it's an indefensible issue. No matter how much you say, hey, no, look, I'm more right-wing, I'm more left-wing, you can be whatever you want. But what should not be allowed is for government officials to be involved in matters related to child abuse. Because defending that is also being part of those kinds of groups of abusers. Whether they are Democrats or Republicans, it doesn't matter. It should never be allowed for government officials to be involved in these kinds of matters, and there's the list. The first one, well, Donald Trump, Melania Trump, Howard London, John Pellin, Secretary of the Navy. Imagine Paolo Zampoli, the person in charge of the Kennedy Center, Kennedy himself, the person in charge of health, Kevin Warsh Marwood, Office of Strategic Services, Elon Musk, Steve Bannon, an obvious conspiracy theorist, Alex Costa, Bill Barr, Brett Ratner, and the list goes on. And there are the Democrats, and there are the scientists, and there are the businessmen. It's a long list that we've been publishing here, and it shows that there's a very dark situation that needs to be investigated. And fortunately, both Republicans and Democrats are demanding an investigation. Even the Make America Great Again people have been coming out and saying they want an investigation because they obviously don't want to be part of the same thing. They don't want to be part of this situation. So, well, that's an interesting issue as well. Well, this image that has surprised everyone today is of the Chinese army showing how they use it. This is a drone training area. These are drones like the virtual reality type that you're seeing there. FPVs are drones that they use to attack. For example, to break windows, a drone breaks the window and then another drone comes in and attacks. For example, to enter buildings and eliminate people. I don't know, they go in and out. Look at how, well, it's lit up without this. Look, there are also balloons. They pop balloons as if they were targets. There's a balloon, there's another balloon. They pop it and operate inside the building. They need to have one, I understand. A very strong signal, well, to do this kind of maneuver, well, it's the use of drones wherever you want. Israel, China, the United States, Japan, anywhere, even in Ukraine itself, obviously Russia. They're being used more and more for defense, for attack, and for other purposes like rescue, research, and meteorology. I mean, it's not just war. There are other functions too. By the way, in Russia, everything related to Apple has been deactivated or is starting to be deactivated. This is going to affect thousands of iPhone and computer users in Russia. The reason is because of the sanctions from the United States and Europe. So basically, you won't be able to operate there anymore. When they ask for identity verification and documents, if you're from Russia, you just won't be able to operate. So yes, it's going to affect a lot of people over there too. Well, that's how it is. This is a topic that draws attention, as we can see here. This is the launch of about 6 Flamingo cruise missiles by Ukraine. This is against the Russian arsenal from the Volgograd region. There have been many attacks on Volgograd. It's a Russian area that's close to Ukraine, which has been heavily attacked lately with these cruise missiles. It's an issue that also draws attention. There it is. Look, that's the attack inside Russia. And well, that's how it is. Things are really intense between both sides. Now, this is also a refinery. In Russia, a Lukoil refinery was attacked. This was in the city of Ukhta, Komi Republic, in Russia, about 2,000 kilometers from the border with Ukraine. Also, another one of the attacks that drew the most attention today, and another one is a kamikaze drone. Also, a refinery in that same area, also in Ukhta, and we have this very curious image. Do you see this person? This individual is the Prime Minister of Greece. The Prime Minister of Greece is next to Erdogan, even though they're on very bad terms, right? Erdogan and the Greeks, right? They're really at odds. Well, the Greek Prime Minister, he wipes his nose. Look at what he's doing. He wipes his nose, right? He wipes his nose and then he laughs. He checks if anyone is watching or looks at himself, laughs and keeps it up. And look, the face, it's just that the face says it all, so it's better to take it out and keep it in the pages of the official agreement file. I mean, so that Erdogan eats his own boogers or something like that. I don't know. There it is. Did he think they wouldn't record him, or did he actually think they would record him and that's why he did it? I don't know, because if not, he definitely wasn't clueless, right? But anyway, there are also those curious things that happen now in it. In geopolitics, well, it's interesting. It's interesting too, honestly. Well, this comment was made. Let's listen.
False allegations at United States, there will be costs, and those costs start today. That is our message to them. And my message to the American people is, if you continue to stand up, patriotic Americans of good conscience.
This is a report. Is this a report? This Jason Crow, who launches today a last warning to Pam Bondi. If he turns his back on the Constitution and abuses our justice system, you can't hide. The justice is coming. Well, it's part of the comment that this congressman makes. Well, let's go to other things, other comments. How have you been? A big hello, greetings there. Oh, why don't you talk about the serious problems in Mexico, he says. How? What problems? Let's see, teach me, educate me, tell me, what serious problems are there according to you? From here, from Mexico, and we can gladly analyze and discuss them. We talk about international topics. It's not a news show about Mexico, right? Robin Mart, I send you a big greeting, and if there's any problem in Mexico that worries you, tell me what it is. and we can gladly talk about it. We often discuss Mexico's problems. In case you weren't aware, I send you a big greeting. But it's not a channel about a country, it's a channel, in any case, about the world. Greetings and thank you very much, Tino. Very good. Greetings to the whole community. Greetings to everyone watching us from Canada, from the United States, from Asia, from Europe, from Spain, above all. Thank you very much from Argentina, from Colombia, from Mexico, from Guadalajara, from right here, from Monterrey. Thank you very much. He says, Liceo, yes, the hidden ones are machines, real machines. Greetings, Liceo. How have you been? Very good. Greetings to you too. Who else is out there? 67? Did you see the Partido Acción Nacional conference? Bondi, yes, well, it was embarrassing. I totally agree. I mean, unbelievable. Well, yesterday we posted several videos and we've been, doing some tests here on the channel. Which kind of videos does the community prefer? Short live streamed videos or videos like this? Longer ones? No, during the morning, you all will tell us what you prefer. Greetings to Danny Villar. Hello, how have you been? Greetings. Who else is there? Greetings, very good, he says. Greetings to Pepe, how have you been? Thank you, Aurelio, greetings. Oh, Mexico, no problem. Well, who said there were no problems? Of course there are problems. There are problems, my friend. There are always problems in every country, right? One of the biggest problems is the weapons that come in from the United States. By the way, right? And that's why the narcos have the power they have, right? Because of chance? 50% of the weapons come in from there, and others say it's 70%. And a large percentage, by the way, are military weapons. We've talked about it here, and we've also discussed many of the problems related to this issue. Although the topic of organized crime is something that deserves its own channel. Just about that, right? It's like there are channels that only talk about economics or just about crypto, right? It's a very deep topic, and there are many channels that talk about it, just about that topic. We talk about international topics, about what's happening all over the world, but this is a specific topic. I thought you were being serious, that there was a specific problem. Are you talking about the general stuff, the classic I've heard people mention drug trafficking problems, specifically corruption in the Mexican government, which is widespread. What other topic do you want to talk about? The number of people they've arrested or the number of people they haven't arrested as well, right? There are issues and problems, of course. He says, even though it may sound very cliche, we are witnessing the fall of the hegemon. He says, cheers, 67. Hello, cheers Robin, cheers Eliseo, cheers to the whole community. No, there are problems. There are problems. I mean, it's not an issue. We can't avoid it. The problems are problems, and they're real and very complicated. And hopefully, right? Hopefully soon there will be some deep work done to address not just the issue of the narcos and the weapons. Who are the ones truly financing this? Where is the financial part? That is spreading through Europe, the United States, the Caribbean, and also through Mexico. Obviously, how many businesses are there that are just for laundering money? You don't even have to, in fact, you don't even have to dig that deep if you don't want to. There are a lot of businesses that are really obvious. You say, wait a minute, this business is everywhere. It could be in Mexico, the United States, or anywhere. And you never see any customers, and they've been operating there for years, and you say, hey, wait a minute, how do you do it? How do you manage to keep operating? You never have customers, and you're everywhere, huge businesses, and you don't see a single customer. You say, really? How is that possible? Because everyone on social media, there are even memes about that, about those kinds of businesses. You say, how is that possible? Either someone wants to lose money, or someone is losing a lot of money, or someone is laundering money there, but it's right in front of everyone. But corruption is everywhere. I mean, it's not just here, right? It does have to be addressed here. I mean, it has to be taken seriously and paid attention to. It's pretty intense, isn't it? But it's something very, very widespread. It's deeply rooted in many issues, in many areas, he says. And that they don't have the issue of consumption either, unless you have excessive consumption. There's a huge business that's here in Mexico, but it's also in Canada and in China and in Europe, in Africa. There are even African countries that, live off what they sell in Europe and the United States. Let's be honest, as long as there's consumption like that, someone is going to run it. Unfortunately, that's how it is, so we have to work on the consumption. Because if it's not there, a huge black market is created, and that black market eventually turns into organized crime. And then organized crime, it escalates, right? It escalates to politics, it escalates to music, it escalates to other areas, right? Unfortunately, it has escalated too much, hasn't it? And there it is, right in politics. What happened with this mayor of Tequila is incredible. With him, it's incredible. You say, how is it possible that he operated so openly asking for protection money? And then the new mayor comes in and they release a video where he's singing a narco ballad. And you say, well, it's not a crime, I think, to sing it. But you say, it seems really weird to me. Really strange. That's not what it says. It says, look, peace. It says, greetings. It says, happiness. How have you been? Says Buff. Yesterday here, they caught someone rescuing a boat with 12,000 liters of diesel. And who knows? They say it was for the submarines. To be continued. Yeah. So, it was a load to fill up the tanks of traffickers' submarines or something like that? Or how is it? This one, I can't imagine it was something like that, right? Let me see, let me put it here, okay? It says, let me check. There's nothing pending, but did you understand me? I have, I think 3 images to share that I still need to show. There it is. It says, more images. Here it is. This image again. Let's listen. Let's see. They say out there, this is Delcio Rodriguez, the Secretary of Energy of the United States, inside Petróleos de Venezuela, SA. We hadn't seen this image before. Let's listen. This is what the president of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development gave us. They're already telling me that he's left. No.
So we are very proud, very proud. The commitment is not only to produce environmental processes.
No, who knows, but honestly the audio is just low. I can barely hear it. Still, it's interesting to see them together, isn't it? Not even a month has passed, because tomorrow marks a month, so not even a single month has passed and they're already there. Isn't it? This is incredible too. Well, look, I hadn't seen this topic before, huh? I hadn't seen it. Astrid just sent it to me. That's crazy. Let's see. Let's look at the image. Hold on a moment. I'm just checking how... Okay, here it is. It's this. I just need to turn off the music because it's really loud. Let's see. This is what it says. Let's play it now. Just let me read what it says here. Let's see. China would be testing the Long March 10. It's an escape system from a new crewed spacecraft called Mengshu. A key step for its nuclear program and in consolidating new generation human flight capabilities. Well, let's watch the video, right? It really reminds me a lot of Elon Musk's, the ones from SPACEX, right? I think that's gonna be the trend. Look, landing the flights vertically, right? It's pretty similar, right? Let's see if he gets sued. Or that Starlink doesn't patent its stuff. Well, some things yes, but a lot of what Starlink has they don't patent. I'm going to tell you why. Starlink doesn't patent many of its technological advances because patenting them is basically like putting up a sign, he says, for National Aeronautics and Space Administration, the direct information about how they're doing things. And well, National Aeronautics and Space Administration is going to replicate them later. Aren't they going to do it with a small change? And with that, well, that's it. They've already solved this particular issue and they're not going to hire them anymore. So, for some time now, not just them, by the way, several of the most advanced technology companies in the space sector prefer not to patent. They prefer to keep the secrets to themselves and not patent anything else because if they patent it, their progress gets stolen. So it's interesting, but the most impressive breakthroughs, the most powerful ones. We won't keep saying they lack patents, since governments usually keep that information private for their own interests. I'm unsure about China, but I doubt they patent them. Obviously, if not, maybe they're even partly copies, because that's just how it is. And I'm not saying it's just them. China, obviously it's known that they copy, but practically all countries do it too. All countries. They steal things. Sometimes there are things that seem insignificant, but sometimes there are little details on a spacecraft that solve problems worth millions of dollars. And today, I gave this solution to so-and-so. Sometimes you figure it out just by looking or spying, but you learn this way, not from the same people. Look, just to make some money. With all the stealing, the piracy of information, many of North Korea's advances were stolen from the Russians, and the Russians realized it now that they're having a better relationship. They realized that the North Koreans had stolen many of the advances they have in their defense systems. They were hacked by North Korean hackers who hacked the Russians and then adapted the technology inside North Korea, and now Russia realizes it. Oh wow, hold on. At this point, this was mine, right? Well, now it's gone. And also to the United States, right? Or check this out. The MQ-9, the drone that the North Koreans have, is an almost identical copy. The stealing is outrageous, isn't it? But anyway, it's interesting to see this progress, right? I mean, it's still interesting to see it, isn't it? Also, well, look at what this Republican congressman says, because then many people think it's just that. The Democrats are upset with Pam Bondi. No, the Republicans are too. Look, this is what Donald Trump says. And here's the response. But the comment I'm going to read to you is from Thomas Macy. He says, "When Bondi interrupted my testimony at our hearing yesterday, I knew the president would attack me in retaliation." So when this Republican Thomas Macy interrupted this presidency, Bondi said, "I already know that tomorrow Trump is going to attack me with a comment," says Thomas Macy, Republican. "I insist. That's how it was," he says. "But I won't be intimidated or give up my fight for justice and the victims." Can you help me stay in that fight? And it says there, well, that you send him what he asked for, and it's a donation. Obviously not to this Republican, no, but what I'm getting at with this, and this is the... Sorry. This is the full post from Thomas Macy. No, there it is. What I'm getting at is how. I mean, how are you going to justify as a politician, no matter where you're from, how do you justify not going against those responsible? It doesn't matter. I mean, he was your buddy, he was your friend. You have to go after those responsible, no matter who they are or what side you're on. You're a Clinton, you're out, you're a Bush, you're whatever. It doesn't matter. I mean, I understand there can be struggles between politicians, but what should never be allowed is the abuse of minors. Was it that easy? Very simple, right? Whoever does it, regardless of origin, must pay and face the consequences. And if Pam Bondi is defending these people right now, she has to pay the consequences. She has to face the consequences legally. Similarly, if they're Democrats, it doesn't matter where they're from, right? But anyway, that's where the tug of war is. It's really good. It's very interesting. Because in the end, there will be pressure for those responsible for Epstein's Island and all these crazy things that were done to pay for it. Greetings. Thank you, Robert. Greetings. Thank you very much for being there with us. Greetings to Tino, he says. If a country has corruption, he says, it's because it exists, but it's also prosecuted, says Tino. That's the point, right? There's always going to be corruption, but if it's prosecuted, good for that country, because that country will prosper. It's impossible to eliminate corruption completely. I understand that, because there will always be someone involved, right? But as long as it's prosecuted, I mean, as long as action is taken, well, maybe that's what I like. It sits well with me. From Peru, Peru, you say, how many presidents haven't they put in jail over there? But there are countries in Latin America where they would never dare to even touch a president with the petal of a rose, right? I mean, it doesn't matter what party they're from, right? I mean, they never do it. It caught my attention, at least, and I don't like that government at all. The one in Spain, not in everything, but at least in that government. How many governors, even from his own party, ended up in jail? Do you remember, including his own party, including people close to him? How is it possible that with everything we know right now, there aren't any governors from Morena ending up in jail? Honestly, I can't explain it. I don't understand. I mean, at least I was surprised that the mayor of Jalisco, ended up in jail, right? You say this is a step, but you also say, yes, you can't avoid having corrupt people. There will always be some, but you have to do something about it, right? I totally agree with that. As long as there's someone who, if there's a justice system that's looking for them, that's investigating them, at least there's some balance, right? Because if not, they just do whatever they want, right? And like those famous lists, if not Baroja, those complaints have been around for years, millions of documents, and who? Millions of documents and lists. And they keep covering up what they shouldn't be covering up, which are the ones responsible, right? The ones responsible have to be on the list, you have to see who they are, and then they need to be investigated. What they asked this Pamondi was, how many? Okay, you haven't arrested a single one, is that right? Just Einstein and Maslow. But out of everyone on the list, which is a ton of people, how many have you investigated? I'm not going to tell you. I'm not even going to tell you how many I've arrested, because we already know it's just those, and they didn't get to this Bondi. No, how many have you investigated? He replied, and the congressman said, no, I do know how many you've investigated. 0. He says 0. How is that possible? I mean, honestly, when I imagine that if you want to be a politician, and especially if you want to be a politician in the prosecutor's office, your goal, your mission, I imagine it's to bring justice and say, I'm going to fight for the people. That, well, justice can't be done, right? We're going to fight for the people who have suffered. No, and no, not a single one says, well, at least I'll investigate the others, the less powerful ones. No, at least not even for that. Not even that. And then they say, why don't you investigate him? Why doesn't he leave? Even with, hey, look, grab 2 or 3 little politicians there, the ones who aren't guilty, who aren't afraid, so they're the ones who show up on the lists, but at least for later. Well, I'm going to tell you why, because if he investigates them, they're going to talk and say, okay, fine, you're going to investigate me, but also investigate this other guy too. And I'm going to spill the beans about this one, and this one, and I'm going to tell all the information about all of this. So that's how I get away with it, right? That's what the politicians think. So they don't catch any of them, not even the lower level ones. Isn't this crazy? I mean, it is, but at least right now we have the information. There are still a lot of documents missing. The demands are at their highest, but I see little action. And what surprises me the most right now, honestly, is that I don't see that massive attitude from the people. I mean, let's raise our voices and let's protest, and I don't see it. They're already there. There are already protests in India because they mention Modi in some documents, and they just mention him in passing. And there are protests, just a few. They're not massive, but there are already protests. No, I don't see why anymore. Maybe it's apathy. I don't know. It's curious. Miguel, how have you been? Greetings, Eliseo. Very good greetings, he says. Justice is impartial or it's not justice, he says. Well, yes, exactly. Eliseo, greetings. Miguel, how have you been? Good morning still. Well, it's already late to go out, you know. Greetings, says Pepe. Justice is only applied to the barefoot, says Danny. How have you been, Danny? Greetings. He says, there was an earthquake in Puebla. Let's see if it detects it here. Oh, well, it hasn't detected it here yet. But let me see if the seismological service has already posted it. Did you just feel it, or what happened? Let's see. Let's check. National Seismological Service. Thank you. I'm seeing one in Guerrero from 18 minutes ago. Look, I imagine that's the one you felt, right? It was at 12:33, about half an hour, 40 minutes ago around that time. This is the earthquake. There it is, it says. Here it says 4.6, so yeah, it was pretty strong, or I mean, you could definitely feel it. 55 kilometers deep, and it was in this area of Guerrero. Yes, in Tlapa, Guerrero. That must have been it, right? People there probably felt it more. Greetings, Leonardo. How have you been? Very good. Thank you so much, Leonardo. A big greeting to you and your whole family. He says, of course, as well. Greetings to Victor the Sleepyhead. Greetings to Victor the Sleepyhead. Why not? Now that he's waking up, it's already late, isn't it? He asks, who else is here? Let's find out. He says it's the one from Tlapa. They're probably talking about that one, since it's the only one I see here. There was also one in Villapan, Chiapas, but that was 7 hours ago. The last one is the one from Guerrero. Great, well... He says, just like the famous lists. Ah, well, they're chatting there. Continuous greetings, he says. In California, there's still days. You're right. Over there, it's 11. No, 11, 12, 1. It's 11 or 12 over there with you. Well, it's a 2-hour difference, right, Miguel? So it must be 11 in the morning? Yeah, so it's almost afternoon too, but well, we'll be back later, right? We'll keep uploading the summaries, and if anything comes up, we'll meet here again, right? Thank you so much for joining us. Greetings to the whole community. The idea here is to talk, chat, and keep up with the news. Leonardo, greetings to everyone. Take care. We'll see you later. See you later. We interrupt your regular programming. Thank you for tuning in. Honestly, this is Pepe Live.
The truth is intense, pure. The unusual is real, pure. Here we analyze it. Global perspective. Don't miss out. Tune into the Pepe Live channel. Controlling the signal. Pepe and Astrid telling it like it is. Raw journalism. Here, it's respected. Turn on the alert. Don't lose track until next time. Yes, sir, we're taking attendance. Subscribe. Live in the house.
You don't say anything.